Buckle up for AEC Trailblazers, The Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Trailblazers podcast, where we interview the most amazing minds of the AEC. Today with us, we have Havard Bosok. Hopefully I pronounced that right, or Havard is going to kill me. Havard is an architect at heart and an engineer by mind that brings more than 20 years of AEC experience to his entrepreneurial endeavors and is always looking to break the status quo. He has worked at amazing firms like Ramble and Snojera. He co-founded Bad Monkeys with some of the brightest minds of the AEC. Havard's passion for innovation, entrepreneurship led him to found Reope and later Anchor, a platform for the creation, validation, and automation of BIM data. Havard is also one of the nicest people in the AEC and the nicest Norwegian I know. Maybe the only Norwegian I know. If that counts.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's something.
Yeah.
And he's always looking to maintain work-life balance by doing fitness, meditation, or just enjoying a nice dinner. So welcome, Havard.
Thank you so much, Valentin, and thank you so much for the kind introduction.
It's what you deserve, man. You deserve much more.
It's my own introduction I gave to you.
Yeah. Shh, don't say that to people. They will know.
Yeah.
They will know.
10 seconds into the podcast and we already have to cut it.
Yeah. Man, you have to edit this podcast so many times. Not sure I like it.
Sorry. I'll keep a straight face.
You're don't worry. I like to keep it organic. So do you want to add anything else to the bio description that you think it's a highlight that I missed?
No, I think it was pretty good. I don't think long intros is what we need more in this world. I do maybe just if I was adding anything, I'd say like I have anger management issues, so I get angry with things, and that has I talked about it a few times before in different settings, and actually in many ways that led me on a pretty interesting path. So
that's something interesting. Typically, when you think on a person who has anger issues, first you think it's someone who is not a nice person, who is always angry. You're kind of angry, but in a nice way. So, and also, how can you get more into that? How do you feel that anger has helped you fuel all the stuff you do?
Fueling is maybe a good way to put it. It feels like gasoline, maybe, that you put on a fire, and it makes the fire bigger. I do get I do get annoyed with a lot of things. I get annoyed with tools in the AC industry. I get annoyed with people. I get annoyed with just random things that happen to me, like hit my leg or hit my knee or something like this. I can get really like out of proportion annoyed with these things. And then in the moment, I don't always feel like they are constructive or this is a good thing happening to me. But maybe in retrospect, when I sit and I look a little bit back in my life and I think about the things that happened and the things that I was annoyed about and how they were the fuel in some ways to initiatives that I took that opened up a lot of possibilities. Like, for instance, starting companies or building products or, learning new products. I was really annoyed with AutoCAD on the day when I saw Revit for the first time in my life. So I was like super ready for something new. And if I wasn't annoyed with AutoCAD, then maybe I'd go like, okay, let's cool new thing, I'll go back to my job. But instead, I grabbed Revit and started learning something new. So that way it's been constructive and good.
I think anger for you is perfect. It's a thing that nobody can avoid. It's natural. The problem I feel is when you get angry at things that you cannot change, or you don't do anything about it, right? You're in traffic, you get angry about it, and then you don't do anything to change that, like drive on a different hour or whatever. In your case, I think it's the perfect solution, and you don't need anger management. You are doing it the healthy way you can. Like, you get angry at something and then you change it. Like,
Yeah.
we need more people like that in the industry.
I think a lot of people also get, something bad happens to you, or you hit your knee, or you step on a Lego or something, and then you yell at your kids. And like taking out that anger on other people is really not very constructive often. I think you can, you can, every single one of us can think about how we want to change our lives, and how I want to greet the world, and what I want to think about, how I control my mind, and so on. But like, the ability to control what other people think, and the ability to change what other people are doing, is very, very limited. You can get people sometimes to follow you on a movement if you're going somewhere, but just like yelling at people and say, "Stop doing this, Valentin, I don't like it." Yeah, I don't know. I have a very limited success rate with that kind of activity.
Oh, true. I don't think it's like when you discuss politics, it's so weird or so rare that you're going to discuss politics with someone, and any of the ones that are discussing something is going to change their mind. Typically,
Yeah,
that
it
never
happens.
happens. That never,
Zero.
times by a discussion, or zero. Like, it never happens. But I do think that, and I've seen people change their mind when they see people doing things, like some new politic or some new whatever leader or whatever, it's doing something that it's amazing, and then they start following that person. So I feel it's something that you're also doing that, and you're leading the change in the industry. But before we go into that, I'm just curious. Can you tell us a bit about your journey? How you started? How do you become a great leader? Really well known in the industry. How was leader Havard?
I think you should probably ask the people that I've tried leading. I think that I don't know how I am as a leader. I think you should talk to my children and my colleagues. But I try to be myself. I try to do what I do well, and I like that. The quote, the title of the Michael Jackson song, "Man in the Mirror." I think that by applying change to yourself, the one that you want to see in other people, is that the way to go about it. I feel very much, and I think I shared with my CEO at Anchor just 2 days ago, I feel very much like a monkey, who found some stocks and some stones and some rocks, and just started hitting things. It's been I've experienced a lot of fun things in the industry. I came out as an engineer out of university, I think 21 years ago this summer, and I've experienced a lot of different things, worked in different companies and different industries, and met a lot of different people. And almost all of it has been like really great, and I feel really grateful for that experience. But I don't feel it was something that I decided 20 years ago that, okay, this is the path. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to move to Ramböll, then I'm going to go to Smöhötta, then I'm going to do Bad Monkeys. It was all just like random chance and just running into interesting people over the years. And then, maybe, having that, I suppose one thing that and really trust me when I say I have, you have a list of things that you're happy and not so happy about yourself. The list of things that I'm not so happy about myself is pretty long. One of the things that I kind of like about myself is that ability to turn that anger into initiative, or dissatisfaction, or just seeing some opportunity. I've seen a lot of opportunities. I didn't take all of them, but turning those opportunities into initiatives and then starting things is like something that, okay, yeah, that's not too bad, Håvard. So that was how I was a pretty shitty student. I was an engineering student, and they almost threw me out of university because of my grades. I was unemployed the first 6 months. I worked in the storehouse, and and then I got my first job as an engineer. I was not a brilliant engineer at all. Like, people yelled at me because I was lazy and stupid. And then eventually, through chance, like I said before, I saw Revit, and then I really liked it, and I wanted to learn it more. And then new opportunities came along, and that has been a very interesting and journey that I'm grateful for today, where I'm basically now today I'm the founder of 2 companies that employ a number of people, and I think we're doing important stuff. That was a way too long rant. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. But I do like what you said about. I don't think you were stupid, maybe lazy, but I think it relates with what you said about liking something or not liking something. Like if you have to, like, even study, I didn't like university either. For me, it was the worst experience ever. Like, I hate it. But then when I found out what I liked, I started enjoying and being good at it. And I feel it's more related to what you like. And if you like it, most likely you're going to be good at it than if you're smart or not, or if you're lazy or not. So I do really like that specific thing you said. But I am also curious on, you came working on all these amazing firms, and suddenly you decided, like, hey, I want to work on these firms, and I'm going to start my own path. I'm going to create my own company. And I think the first one was Bad Monkeys. But why do you decided that? What happened there that you decided, like, okay, stop with just following all this path and following my own path, with which, by the way, it's not a bad thing, working on a company. I think it's also amazing. But why did you decide to move on from that?
It's like you say. I feel so many times it's amazing, and many days I miss it. A lot of days I really miss working in for instance, in an architectural firm. I was at Snøhetta. Snøhetta is a pretty big architectural firm in not necessarily in size, but in like global impact, for a Norwegian firm. And it was an amazing place for me to work. I loved every day of being at Snøhetta. So there were like zero dissatisfaction there. Of course, I was annoyed with things, like I told before. If I went through 12 hours during a day where I'm not annoyed, it would be a miracle. So, but and nothing here in life is perfect. But it was really cool. I loved it. I still have close friends from Snøhetta that I keep in touch with on a daily basis. So then I think it was more a combination between knowing the monkeys, knowing the Bad Monkeys. That was an important, sliding door moment in my life when I got to know the Bad Monkeys. And in combination with one of those things that I said before, I saw an opportunity flying past. There was an opportunity here. Boom, choo. Oh, what's this? This is interesting. Here's something. And that something was like how I was working and operating and delivering value in projects in Snøhetta together with the Bad Monkeys. That was an opportunity. I saw it. And then, I went to a conference, got drunk, talked with a few other monkeys, and then started having some funny ideas. And then all of a sudden, before you knew it, I was like sitting home in my kitchen without a job and without an office and without a paycheck, and being a bad monkey, I suppose. So yeah, it was a combination between seeing an opportunity and also having that network. At least that's what it's been like for me. I suppose there's other founders have, been in a more soul environment, just with me and my thoughts and then thinking out the brilliant idea. But for me, it was like really important in this time to be part of that network that we're like exploring new things.
So basically, gut feeling,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. No business plan, no nothing. But I knew that there was going to be value in having a team of experts that were like ahead of the curve and knew how to do programming in BIM. I was pretty certain that sounded like a smart thing. So that's what I started doing.
That sounds like really easy. It's like, well, it's obvious. Like you had the network, you knew these amazing people, but I think those are hard decisions that are never easy at the moment you're taking the decision. Like the gut feeling decision is so hard to listen to yourself. I don't know.
Hmm.
And in my experience, it's like it sounds like I did my gut feeling. It's like you really follow your gut feeling. And we have spoken about this when we were in Riga earlier
Yeah,
this year, but
I vaguely remember.
Literally, we were sleepy. We were not drunk at all.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Um, but how do you deal with that? Like for you, it's easy to take decisions on gut feeling, or you have a
Yeah,
hard time.
I have a hard time. I think naivety plays a big part, and that's maybe one of the reasons why people say that young people should start companies. It's been interesting for me to follow the startup. I didn't even know there was a startup community in Norway like 10 years ago. So, but there is, and globally. And a lot of founders are younger than me, like people in their 20s and 30s, and I do really still. I get really fascinated when I hear about founders who are like older, in their on their or further along on their path, before they start their first company. I think that the maybe the younger you are, the more naive you are, and the more naive you are, the less scared you are of what you don't know. So that gut feeling, I have a gut feeling about this being an opportunity, and I should probably grab that. And I was a little bit younger then than I am now, and it, like, looking back, I don't think I was extremely worried. I should probably have been more worried, because it didn't turn out the way that I thought it was going to turn out at all. And in times it was so stressful that it like hurt me physically, and mentally, of course, but then you feel it physically. um and it's like with life, everything in life, the big problem you're going to have in life, you don't know about it today. We spend our time worrying about so many things, and then 9 out of 10 things that we worry about never happen. And the big problem that you get, like for instance a pandemic, who thought that was going to come back in 2018? Certainly I didn't. So the things that actually come and kind of hurt you along the way, you have no notion about. So a little bit of naivety definitely played in. And maybe I'm a little bit less naive today, but it didn't stop me from starting new companies. So I don't know.
It was not enough suffering, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Naive, angry, and stupid. This is the
In the business card, Havard,
yeah.
naive,
Yeah.
angry, stupid. That could be a really good slogan. Oh. No, but I do agree on the fact that things never turn out to be as you expect them to be. Like,
No.
first of all, you don't need to focus on the bad things because most of them will never happen. But then on the good things, like being successful, yeah, that might happen for sure, but it will never be exactly as you have planned it. Like, because you can never. It's like with I still I think it's something that for me struck me, and when I explain this to people, they look at me like, what? But it's like buildings. You have a planet, and never there is zero building in the world that has been finished on time exactly as been planned. And and for me to this day, it's so stupid, like how you can be still plan it the same way, like with a Gantt chart, like everything is gonna be right on time, and when it never is like that. So it's just stupid.
Mm.
Like, but I do feel it applies the same to startups, right? Like you might be successful, you might have get a lot of money, a lot of clients, but it will never be the exact clients you want. It will never, because it's not the way it works.
Yeah.
You have to deal
No,
with that.
that was exactly the journey that I felt like I was having. I didn't know it at the time, but that was exactly what happened. And yeah, every good plan goes out the window, after 5 minutes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's useless to plan. I think it's like planning in itself. I'm not a planner, so I shouldn't really be talking about planning here. I don't know anything about planning. I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner today. But I think it's really useful, but probably more for the learning aspect of it, and to have some kind of common idea of what we're trying to do, than the actual execution of the plan. It's probably useful that I've spoken with my wife about what we're going to have for dinner today, what she would like, and so on, than that we actually create that plan, write it down, and stick to it. That's less valuable, I suppose. Kind of like your education. At least my education was largely useless. I'm not applying a lot of knowledge, or ever did, really, that I learned in university. But I learned some other things. I learned to learn. I learned to pay attention. I actually learned in many ways to be a grown-up also during university years. So kind of ish. I wasn't a grown-up. Still, I'm not. But so yeah, I think there's still value in the plan, but and you're absolutely right. Every single project, show me the one project. Maybe someone can actually point to like one project where we got all the smart people to sit and work in a cave, with no distraction. That probably worked, but not in a scalable way.
No, absolutely, and like you said, it's a good definition. Like, you're going to create a building, but not necessarily means that you need to put every detail on how you're going to do it, because it will never happen. Um, but also how you have successfully launched and implemented Anchor in many well-known firms. How do you deal with this on a day-to-day basis, where um, there is a lot of ambiguity? What you're doing adds a lot of value for sure, but then actually selling it, or trying to convince people to use it is different. And how do you deal with that?
Oh, you mean how I deal with it, like in my own mind, and the hard work of it, or in some other
Well,
context?
on a practical way, like,
Mm.
you have a great product, and you have to basically go and talk to people that are not using your product, right?
Yeah.
The and it adds value, but then you have to convince them, and at the same time you have to keep adding features to your product. So how do you deal with all of that? It's too many things at the same time, and what's the strategy that you use?
I'm not a plan guy, and I'm not a strategy guy. So or suppose I have one, but it's not written down. It's probably, I don't know. A lot of people are going to get offended when I say it, but I do sometimes feel that sales is the most difficult job on the planet. Not because you get your hands dirty, or because you break your back, or you get a sunburn, but because it is one of the most difficult things on this planet, is to get other people to give you their money for the thing that you have. And that's like hard grind. I learn a lot from my team about it, especially our CEO and Anchor. He has much more sales experience than I have. I guess I got pretty good at some point in time, probably because both my parents are teachers, and I had I got really deep into both Revit and Dynamo at some point in time, and I could start teaching it to people. So I have, I suppose I have I think, at least of myself, that I have an ability to understand something technically and present it in a captivating way to other people, like kind of like a missionary or evangelist or this like priest character from games. So I kind of have that, but then taking that ability and like applying it to a sales process and then adjusting to all the different people that you talk to, it's very, very challenging. I suppose I deal with it and just never stopping. I never give up, and I just keep pestering. I try not to be like annoying, pestering people, but I really feel like I would use Anchor every day of my job at both Snøhetta and Dark and Rumble and all these places I worked before. I would use Anchor myself. I'd operate it and apply it connected to all my Revit models and all the BIM, and then use it as a project information model. And that the certainty that I would do this myself really helps. I have that inside of me. So although I try not to be antisocial and like pester people too much about my Bible or, but I really feel like there's something here that's valuable. And then it's the hardest job in the planet is to get people to pay you money. And it's also a pretty difficult job is to actually convince other people that what you feel is right for you is right for them. And actually, like, pretty bad choice of words, because you can't really convince. It's like with the anger, you can't really convince people of that. They have to figure it out for themselves. So I do what I always did before. I learn it. So I'm probably not the best at Anchor in the world, but I'm definitely top 5. And then I'm pretty good at Revit still. And I combine these skills with the ability to tell a story and to be captivating person in meetings, and then try to get people engaged on this movement.
There is so much on what you said. For me, it's like when you're like explaining it, like I can relate so much to it, and first of all, like I feel that nowadays it's really common. Like, hey, be an entrepreneur, and it's easy, and you're gonna do what you love, and you're gonna make a lot of money. And truth is, like, you're not gonna make a lot of money for a long time, and you have to be on and learn so many things that you're not used to, like sales. Who the hell will think that a Revit architect will become a salesman, or and I bet if you go to a company and or any of your employees and software developer, and you tell, you know what, now you're going to start selling, and the guy is going to say, no way, I'm just going to look for another job. What I like is software development. So I feel when you're an entrepreneur, you don't have that luxury of choosing exactly what you want to do, but you have to adapt, and that's extremely painful. And you only do it because you love your product and you believe in your cause. But it's not easy because it's like you're building a plane that you know if it's going to take off, and you're like trying to put together the plane, and at the same time telling people, like, you know what, hop off, it's safe, we're going to take off, and at the same time you're just putting everything together,
and you're on
insane.
The runway, good.
And the worst thing is, like, you don't even know anything about putting together a plane. So it's a combination of factors that you think there's no way it's going to work, but startups work, and you're doing it. But for me, it was so much about what you said that it's not easy, and I bet for sure, even when you like it, it's painful. There's no way it cannot be painful.
But imagine that moment when you actually fly. Oh man, brother. Ooh, I get goosebumps just thinking about it now. Like, imagine that moment when it takes off and you're flying, and everyone on the plane are going like, whoa! Oh.
It's like reaching a mountain, man. Like, you suffer it every second. But the moment you get to the top, it's like, I'm invincible. That's the feeling.
Yeah. It's what keeps me going, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I feel that you're doing a great job, and nothing guarantees the success, right?
No.
But that's also the problem, is how do you define the success, right? Like some people think is, well, I'm just gonna sell my company in millions, and I feel that's also a big mistake. Like if your idea of success is just reaching a specific point, you're never gonna enjoy the journey. Or that's my feeling. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too philosophical here.
That's like, I talk to a lot of existing and potential investors, and that is definitely the time in the meeting when I look most stupid, is when they ask me about my exit strategy, or ask us about our exit strategy, because we don't have one. I don't have one. I have no idea. I think it's people get people. I don't know. I imagine that people sometimes fuck up when they get like confused too many ideas about the future with what they have to do today. What is important for me is what I do today, and then when I wake up tomorrow morning, what is important is what I do tomorrow morning, that day, and having that. Actually, I take a lot of inspiration from sports in this, because I paid close attention to football ever since I was a kid, and that like, you see players with a microphone like this and in the face, and they're like, what do you think about the match, and are you worried about the transfer window, and blah blah blah, and all of this, and they respond like robots, because they've gone to media training, all of them, and they're like, no, this match was good, it was good to get the goal, and every time now I'm only focused on the next match. That ability to just focus on the next match, and then if you score an own goal or you get a red card or whatever, they train every day on like just blocking that out, that negative thing that happened just 5 minutes ago. It belongs to the past. I'm going to learn from it. It's still there, but I'm not letting it affect what I'm doing next. So just thinking too much about, how many billions or millions or trillions, it's just going to confuse me, and it's going to take focus away from what I need to do today. And I think, the feeling of being on that plane, I love the analogy. You're on the runway, the plane is moving, you're still boarding passengers, you're still, attaching the wing, and the pilot is drunk, and you're like, okay, but that feeling that the plane is starting to increase velocity, it's going a little bit faster. Okay, that's, there's some passengers boarding here, and this is great. That enjoying those micro things as the plane keeps gaining more speed, I think is like the key to this. You can't think too much about what it's going to look like in outer space, when you're out there, but just, enjoying it's like waking up in the morning and enjoying a sunset, and, taking the micro things in life and just turning them into pleasure and enjoying it, and then hoping that it's going to go somewhere nice in the future.
I agree 100% on that. And I do think it's something that you rarely see when, like, speaking with VCs, right? Like, I bet you have had the experience, and we're not going to name any VCs here. But I do also have gone through the experience of meeting with VCs and trying to raise money, and then not all of them, right? Not all of them, but many being like, you know what, I'm going to give you this money, but then you have to burn it in this amount of time, and you better do it or to die, or you have to grow this faster. And I'm not judging, that might work for them and that might be an incredible business, but I don't think it's my way, like you said. And it's more of like, I'm going to take the time it takes. I'm not going to take the time you want. I'm going to take the time my clients require it. I'm going to take the time the market is telling me to do it. And I'm going to take the time that I feel it's right. So if you don't like it, you better give the money to somebody else. And I don't know. I'm just curious on how you deal with that balance when raising money in general. Like, you also feel that sometimes it's a contradiction on what some business require for, compared to the view of the way you're taking your business.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience in this. I mean, we're in the middle of our second round, so we had a round last year that actually went really well. But one of the first things that I asked Adrian, who is the CEO of Anchor, to do when we decided to start working together was for him to hold the funding project. So I'm more a part of the rest of the team helping him drive that process and getting it executed in a good way. So and that's been like a key thing for me, is to actually get help or get the team that does this together. But I think sometimes, I don't know. We've been very lucky. As I said, we just closed one round, and we're now in the middle of our second round. I think my investors kind of, I shouldn't school investors. They know what they're doing much more than I do. But I think that I hope that good investors, they keep in mind the importance of motivation. This is something that I've learned the hard way after 6-7 years of being a founder, is that people's motivation is gold. To have people on your team who are motivated is like, if you're able to do that, it's gold. Then you can do anything. And if you have people on the team who are not motivated, bad. Motivation and what motivates people can be different things. I really encourage as many as possible to see the TED talk of what's his name, Pink. I never remember if it's Daniel or David. Something Pink. He has a very good TED talk on the keys of motivation, and he mentions autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And to give people autonomy is a very, very important component to keeping them motivated. So if you have a VC firm that is like really on top of you and like detail controlling how you spend the money and like, are you up to budget and like all these different things, micro controlling things, it's going to hurt motivation. And then if you have a demotivated founder or co-founder team, I think that is a bigger risk than any, change to the plan or whatever. But this is my amateur view on that matter, kind of like influenced with seeing what a motivated team is able to do if they have autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Oh, absolutely. I do think, and you might disagree on this, but motivation for me is something you always need, for sure. But sometimes it can be confusing on the sense that person can be motivated, but motivated to do whatever he or she wants compared to whatever the company needs. So I feel you need motivation, but motivation towards the right goals. Because some people is like that. They're extremely motivated, but they're like, yeah, but I want to do this. And it's like, well, but the company doesn't need that.
Yeah.
So it's something that I also learned the hard way. And it's like, yeah, you're a motivated employee, but if you're not just aligned with the goals of the company, like I don't care about your motivation.
Again, man, I love the sports analogy, and having like a team of footballers, like 11 on the pitch, who are willing to bleed. That's a Norwegian saying. I don't know if it makes sense in English, but you bleed for the suit. Yeah. I saw actually in the France game two days ago, Mbappe broke his nose, and he was like bleeding like crazy, and now he's all like geared up to get the mask and get ready for the next match. Like, you want players on the team who. And that's, yeah, I completely agree with you, and that's so important that you have motivated players, or more motivate. Maybe I should be a football coach one time. Motivated a team who get up in the morning and want to go and kick ass, but also receive some punches. So and it's. We can all agree that that's exactly what we need, and everyone agrees. Every single CEO on the planet will say the same thing. I want motivated people who are willing to sacrifice themselves for the rest of the team and the good of the company and all these things. But then, as my Buddhist coach Eric tells me the only question that's interesting in Buddhism is how. How do you do that? How do you get that? And that, my friend, is probably the most important question in leadership.
and the hardest to answer, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I have
And
this idea. Perfect.
And you see
How?
that the most amazing football coaches, they are able to do that. They can put a star like Ancelotti in Real Madrid. He puts like Luka Modric. Luka Modric won Ballon d'Or a few years ago, and Ancelotti puts Luka Modric, now 37 years old, on the sideline. He doesn't play every game, but still, when he comes onto the pitch and he plays, he goes straight into the hard tackle and sacrifice himself for the team. And you could say the same thing about any other sport. You can say the same thing about high-performing teams. You can say the same thing about military. But there's something there that I have a sense of what makes that happen. But I feel also at the same thing, I'm just scratching the surface of this vast knowledge. There must be a lot of knowledge about how to build these like high-performing, self-sacrificing teams.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not easy. Otherwise, we will all be Mourinho or any other good manager out there. Like, we'll be like that. It's hard.
I'll stop now with the soccer with the soccer analogies.
Don't. Hey, now in the US, soccer is really popular, so that's also a good thing that everybody's get to know a little bit more about it. Hopefully, the same play happens with Messi that happened with Modric. But let's not
you're
get
right.
into that rabbit hole.
You have Messi now in Florida. Wow, I forgot about that. That's great.
Yeah. This has been really interesting. I do have a question regarding Anchor. I'm just curious. What are the? I know you're focused on the now. What are the current next steps on? What are you currently working on the Anchor product?
Usability. That's like short term usability, like we have to make it much, much easier for people who are not deep into BIM or deep into, BIM automation and deep into Anchor, deep into properties. We need to make it much, 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 much easier for them to understand what's going on. And that's like the sole focus now. And then longer term, I don't know. I really want to, not for the sake of having an AI and Anchor at all. Like I have this idea that I can't stop thinking about it, that I really want to happen. A lot of people are spending a lot of time. Actually, people buy Anchor today because they are already spending way too much time controlling parameters in BIM. And people need parameters because it's like, data is the new gold and so on. And parameters represent data. So, okay. You have elements in BIM, and then they're connected with parameters. The parameters can't live inside of Revit or Archicad or Tekla or Civil 3D, whatever people are using, or Rhino for that matter. Parameters need to be outside in a parameter database. I call it a project information model. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. And then, so Anchor today represents, and the people who love Anchor today love it because they spend way less time managing parameter values. Way less time, like 1%, 5% of the time they spent before. But they still do spend a lot of time configuring Anchor because Anchor is rule-based. It's rule-based because of what we talked about before. Everything changes. 5 minutes after you start a project, it already changed. Tomorrow it changed more. BIM requirements in some of the projects we are involved with, the requirements of the clients change almost 100 times during the project. How do you facilitate a process like that? So the people who work in Anchor today, they spend a lot of time understanding Anchor. Okay, we need to solve that with a better user experience and smoother, flow. But I also have this dream that you can just upload your BIM requirements, BIM execution plan or ISO standard, and then just whatever document or form. One of our clients have their BIM requirements in a PowerPoint presentation, and then some human being need to read this, and then understand that, okay, this is uniform classification. This is how that works. And that's useful for someone because of A, B, and C. And then they transfer that knowledge into algorithms and rules and data flow and inside of Anchor. And then maybe making that transition easier is something that we're just moving closer and closer towards. So I hope we can get something out into the market in the next couple of months. But right now, short-term focus, closing next funding round, getting a little bit more runway, and then just making it easy. It's really, really difficult. People have a hard time understanding what the hell to do in Revit, and that's just one tool. Then you have a jungle of other applications and constantly changing project environment and boundary conditions. And then, and then I come in and we do a meeting on Teams like this, and then I explain to them how Anchor works, and then I tell them, oh, and there's a difference whether something is an instance property or a type property. Okay, instance and type, it's a different thing. And I explain with windows and doors and stuff they can see. But still, when they're inside of Anchor and they're setting up these rules, just a simple thing like instance and type, it confuses everyone. So it's, I suppose we have short-term and long-term goals, and this is at least the ones that I know of. Also, I'd love to have more integrations and blah, blah, blah. There's 99 things that you have to say no to, and then you can focus on one thing.
No, absolutely. And even more with something like BIM models, that data is something that people have not been paying attention properly. It's been more about the drawings and but the data, something Revit, it's 20 years old and more than 20 years old. And the thing is, we have never been paying attention to data up to this point. So I bet there is so much you can do or you want to do based on the huge needs that there are, because we have not been paying attention, and now we have always needed so much. But I think nowadays it's even worse because everybody's using BIM, and there is so much data, and nobody knows how to manage it.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows what the future holds? Everyone's looking for a Revit killer, and everyone wants something new, and everyone wants a better process of managing changes and documentation and design and in all these, both buildings and infrastructure and industry projects. But why I feel extremely confident, maybe too much confident about the importance of Anchor, is that whatever the ecosystem looks like in the future, you have to have data, and you have to have good data, whatever, and then we are working as the Buddhists with the how, trying to solve that question, the how do you get good data?
Cool. All right. I don't want to keep asking questions because I know you're a busy person and it's getting late in Europe. But before we wrap this up, can I ask you a couple of ping pong questions?
Okay, of course.
All right. Can you tell me a great AEC software, or the greatest AEC software?
I can tell you what is my favorite, my personal favorite of them all. Has to be Grasshopper. I wish I spent more time in Grasshopper during my years. I really enjoyed it whenever I got to play around with geometry and visualization and automation of CAD in Rhino with the Grasshopper. That was probably the emotionally most giving. It had both the aesthetic beauty and the creative problem solving of figuring out, the list graph, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff in Grasshopper was what I enjoyed most. Yeah.
What about the next big trend in the AC?
Good data.
If you could collaborate with any person in history on any project, which person would you choose?
Oi. Da Vinci, maybe? I don't know. I'd have to learn Italian.
True. Well, you're in Portugal, so Portugal is it's similar to Italian. Maybe you'll
Yeah.
find a way to communicate.
If someone called Da Vinci, 500 years ago and said, "Hey, this Norwegian guy from the future wants to collaborate with me," if he saw me, I think he'd like just leave the room after 2 minutes. Like,
or maybe the opposite. Like that would be cool.
or he'd be disappointed. Is this
Yeah.
how they are? Oh, what? He doesn't know anything.
Outside the AC, do you have any hobbies or activities you have passion for?
I keep it simple, man. I watch football, and I like to have long dinners with friends and talk about fun stuff, and well, you mentioned now Portugal. I've been in Portugal 4 months, and one of the things that I really, really enjoy doing is spending time on the beach, like sand, ocean, waves, sun, blue ocean. The water is not warm, but it's really good for you actually to have a cold bath now and again. So whenever I have an available hour, like yesterday before my son comes from school and after my last meeting, I went and spent an hour on the beach completely alone, just me, even no phone. I leave the phone in the car and just stay there looking at the ocean. It sounds like sad, loner, Unabomber kind of activity to do, but I really enjoy it. And then, I watch football, the European Championship right now. It's really, really good times.
Yeah, fun times. And then, favorite building in the world, and have you ever visited?
I think I'd have to say the Le Monde headquarters in Paris, because it was a project that I was working on at Snøhetta, and it was like really when we were pushing parametric design connected with BIM to the furthest, and it was the start of the collaboration with the Bad Monkeys, so it was impactful and important for me in many, many different ways. And it was an amazing team at Snøhetta. I loved working with my friends there. Luca, my favorite Italian facade engineer that I worked close with on the facade of that. And I've been there 2 or 3 times. Every time I go there, I almost lie down and pray to the to the building. So I love how it is that facade turned out to be, and I also love the fact that it's in Paris and everything. But I also do really enjoy going to my parents' cabin in the north of Norway. So I'd say there's a split competition there between the Le Monde headquarters in Paris and then my mom's cabin in the fjords of Norway.
I like the balance between one and the other. Last question: any book that you recommend?
I think the book that I really enjoyed most reading was The Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones books that I read before the TV show. And actually, I read it after season 1. So I saw season 1 and then I read all the books, and just reading that story from George R.R. Martin was just amazing. It was like I'd never had anything as obsessive book-wise as that. But that's a while ago, and he's kind of disappointed his fans with not, completing the whole. So I'd say if anyone out there didn't read the Century trilogy, can't remember the name of the writer, but I'm pretty sure it's called the Century trilogy. 3 books about the history, the last 100 years, basically, of kind of like Western and European civilization. It was super interesting. It starts in Wales in 1905, where the universe or the world was just so insanely different from what it is today, and it stops. Actually, I won't spoil it, but about 100 years later, and that's just a fascinating story, because it's actually a story. It tells the story of a few different families who interact in different ways over the course of very, very important and defining time in European history.
Nice. Never read it, but I promise I will get back to you with feedback. And before we say goodbye to each other, can you tell everybody where they can know more about Anchor and contact you as well?
Yeah, I think after many, many years on social media with work-wise social media, I'm spending more and more time now on LinkedIn. I use it to communicate with a lot of people every day. So maybe that's different in 5 or 10 years, who knows? But for now, I think the easiest way to get in touch with me is just stalk me on LinkedIn, hit me up and add the connection and send me a message. Other than that, the website is constantly improving for Anchor, so there's more and more relevant and interesting information there, and that's on anchordb.com. I kind of try to do the same as Enscape. I figured if Enscape can do okay with enscape3d.com, I thought anchordb.com. I don't know yet if it will have the same effect, but that's our URL.
It will. All right, man. Thanks very much for your time. It's been a fun journey. So thanks for your time, and hope to see you again on the podcast. All right.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Valentin.
All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in aecworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.